He put me up on his shoulders, and he said, "You're either going to swim or drown." I said, "Clifton, I can't swim." He said, "Yes, you can too." He said, "You'll either swim or drown." So he walked out up to his shoulders, and of course I was small then, you know, and dumped me off, and I did go under, and Clifton pulled me up like this and had to get me out. Yeah, he was under. He still is.
Told me the way to learn to swim was to just throw you in, and he threw me in, and I just about drowned. He had to pull me out because he thought I'd finally swim, but I didn't. I was going to drown for sure. He was stationed first at Fort Story after he went through his training, and he'd come home on the weekends and bring friends with him. One of them was Dan Fleming, and another one was Don Pontius. There was his Army buddies, and then one weekend me and Catherine and Ruby Harmon went up to see them up there and visited up there. I was going to embarrass him real good. When he got out of the car to meet us, I was going to throw my arms around him and kiss him so everybody would think he had a girlfriend. And when I did, I slid flat on my face right in front of everybody. So the joke was on me.
Welcome to the Army, Private Shaw. We want to thank you for volunteering to make the world safe for democracy. Now, for the next 24 months, all we want to see is popos and elbows. 1, 2, 3, 4. You had a good home and you left. You'd like to go back, but you can't. Sound off. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
1. Lift your head up. 2. Throw your shoulders back. 3. Take your chest out. 4. Let me hear you shout. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know, but I believe. I don't know, but I believe. I'll be home by Christmas Eve. I'll be home by Christmas Eve. Sound off. 1, 2. Sound off. 3, 4. Sound off. 1.
After spearheading efforts to begin a church in Korea, Clifton's time in uniform ended. He came back to Norfolk, lived in Broad Creek Village, went to work, and continued more than ever his involvement in the church back home.
And then when he was drafted in the Army, he didn't want to go, but he was drafted. And then Sister Harmon said, "Well, I don't know what on earth I'm going to do without Clifton," because Lone Edward had already been drafted and he was already gone. And she said, "I don't know what on earth I'm going to do without Clifton." I said, "Well, Sister Harmon," I said, "it's not like the Lord to take anything away from us out of the church that means as much to us as it does to Clifton do, and not give us something back in return, or somebody back in return to take his place." And so you know who gave us? He gave us Lloyd. When Clifton went to service, and back then Lloyd got saved. So he gave us back, and then we had Lloyd, and when Clifton come back, we had both of them. So that's the way it's been. And they've worked together ever since. They've moved together, they've lived together. Oh, they'll chew each other out and say anything they want to each other, and you'd think they didn't care about each other, but they love each other. You better believe they do.
I would describe him as just a wonderful man of God with a very, very positive outlook and a very good attitude toward life. Thanks, Clifton, for being my pal all these years. And come out to California and visit us.
Well, after Clifton got grown, moved to Norfolk, he come back home. He thought he could whip me. We were over to the Bob Knowles field, and Rice Martin Hill there before we got to the river. He told me, he said, "You mess with me, I'll throw you in the river." I told him, "I don't believe you can do it." so we hooked up right down to a tit for tat. Just before we got to the river, we give up. He didn't put me in, I didn't put him in, but I think I could have.
I met Clifton in 1953 at the church in Little Creek when our congregation went to join the congregation that was already there.
What did you think of him when you first met him?
I didn't think very much about him, not when I first met him, but he was a nice young man, a little bit older than I was. The first time I went out with him was he called me at home and asked me if I needed a ride to church. And we saw each other for the next 11 nights consecutive before we missed a night seeing each other.
Clifton and Esther were married May 28, 1954, at a Baptist minister's house in Broad Creek Village, and then went to live with Mother Wallace. Clifton worked at the naval base, making approximately $60 per week. Esther worked at the telephone company, making about $40 per week. Clifton stopped working at the Naval Air Station around September of 1954 and went to work with Russell Harris, managing his office at his body shop. Things didn't do well at the body shop, and when Gary was born in March of 1955, Clifton and Esther had no insurance, and Clifton had no job. About this time, Clifton answered an ad for a book salesman's position, but he made no sale. He answered another ad for an insurance salesman and went to work with Bankers Life and Casualty.
When he first arrived to me, he was answering an ad about insurance, and he came to me and I explained to him what I need, and I felt that he is the right age and the right spirit. He said, "Do you think I can make it?" I said, "I believe you could, but you have to do it full time, no halfway." And he said, "I will do that." I liked him because he was different, he was nice looking, better educated than the average people that were coming to me, of course much younger, and he had go-getter, whatever you call it.
We were working for White Cross, Bankers Life and Casualty Company, and he told the story about going out to a man's house on a lead that he had received from the company. And the man just looked at him when he knocked on the door and introduced himself and said, "Let me take a look at that card." And he says, "Can't you see on here that this says that no salesman is to call?" So Cliff says that, "Well, I'm the nearest no salesman they had in the office, so they sent me."
When Gary was about a month old, Clifton and Esther moved into a 1.5 garage apartment, using the money from Gary's birth gifts to buy their first supply of groceries. The apartment was so small, Esther recalls, that Gary slept in the living room in his crib. When Gary was about 11 months old, in February of 1956, the family moved to 3440 Gamage Drive, a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath brick ranch on the lake. Donna was born August 3, 1956, while living there. And approximately September of 1958, the Chalk family moved to 5342 Pine Grove Avenue, where Nancy was born August 16, 1960. And then finally, in 1971, the Chalk family moved to 5215 Riverwood Road in Norfolk.
Hi, Dad. I miss you. Dad, you were probably the best father any kid could have. When we wanted a swing set, you didn't just go out and buy a little metal when you built the one in the tree on Pine Grove Avenue, and we could swing higher than the roof. And I remember that. I remember the playhouse that you built up for Gary up in the tree and having pine cone fights with the neighborhood kids. And I also remember I was always the apple of your eye, and that you would sing to us about when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, and that you would pretend to do magic tricks with the light and say you could turn them from red to green. I used to be so amazed and thought my father could do everything. Thank you very much for everything. Hi, Dad. I love you and I miss you. I hope you're enjoying the program. I just wanted to say thanks for everything you've done for me. You're the greatest. I wish I could be there to be with you today, but I'm sure I'll see you soon, maybe sooner than you think. I love you.
When I first got out of high school, I worked for United Airlines for about 9 years, and became relatively determined that I wasn't going to do well with United Airlines, and decided to go into the insurance business, because for several years Clifton had encouraged me to do it. I remember walking across our backyards where we live now and telling him that I'd given serious consideration to leaving United Airlines and going into the insurance business. And after all of this encouragement and after all of this conversation he used to give me about, you ought to do this, you ought to do this, when he realized I was going to leave that job and do it, he said, well, wait a minute. Let's talk about it. And he was very skeptical, because he didn't want to see me make a mistake, and he didn't want to see me leave what he considered to be a good job and go into a very tough, competitive field. But I went into it anyway, and he was very helpful to me. He and I are in business now as partners, and he's been very helpful to not only to me, to a lot of people. I think one of the probably the real qualities of Cliff is his ability to share what he has and give what he has to other people. He's done it on a number of occasions. He's done it with me. He's done it with, he's always taken it on himself to help people in many ways.